Hey everyone! With Season 15 in full swing, let's get into a few updates. In this video, I'm going to cover our recent challenges with some sneaky exploits, dig into March's update arriving later this week with updates on performance, security and gameplay fixes, and then finish off with some changes we're going to be making to our enforcement policy. It's all killer, no filler. Let's get into it. Let's kick off with an update on the various reputation and currency issues that have occurred since the launch of the season, as we've had a few. At launch, we quickly saw some players progressing through the Hunter's Call much faster than intended, and after investigation it was discovered that crews could duplicate treasured fish as part of the new voyages. While this exploit was resolved quickly as part of our initial hotfix, some players have been really taking advantage, and we felt this warranted this ill-gained progress being removed. On the other end of the scale, at launch we saw genuine play progress players much slower than intended through the higher levels of the Hunter's Call. While the progression curves were corrected as part of our initial hotfix, we were unable to correctly boost players to their intended reputation levels during the hotfix window. As part of this week's update, we'll be correcting reputation for both issues. Any progress players have gained by using the duplication exploit will be removed, and players who made progress prior to the hotfix will now find they are boosted to their intended levels based on how much they earned in that window. Moving from Season 15 to our recent anniversary celebrations, a small number of nefarious pirates found a way to gain additional ancient coins from the community goal event. This is why we can't have nice things. In a shocking turn of events, these additional ancient coins have now been removed from those pirates' accounts. Stepping back from the specific issues here, I talked more broadly about our approach to exploits in a previous video, but to reiterate, players who abuse exploits to gain an advantage should expect to be penalised, and that can range from progress or currency being removed through to suspended playtime, depending on the severity of the impact. I know when these type of issues occur, we see pitchforks in the street, with calls for stricter punishments, with things like commendation progress and cosmetics earned to be rolled back. Being completely transparent, the effort on our team to do this type of enforcement at scale is often significant, and honestly, we need to balance how much time we spend slapping folks on the wrist versus actually working on moving the game forwards. While these deeper levels of punishment, like the removal of commendations or cosmetics, aren't our focus right now, we may shift our stance here if we see players continue to exploit these mechanics and encourage their use amongst our wider community. Next up, let's talk about what's coming in our mid-season update. This introduces the Hunting Spear, a new throwable that, while clearly can be thrown at targets, can also be fired out of cannons to lodge into rival ships, requiring extra work to repair. The world has also got a little richer, with some new ambient wildlife on islands, caves, shorelines and on the waves. While a lighter update on the feature side, we've also got a boatload of performance improvements, security updates and bug fixes arriving this month. Let's start with performance, with our third wave of performance bash improvements. All of our ships have been rebuilt under the hood, into smaller sections, and are now loaded in stages on the server. This will address hitches on the server that are felt by all crews when ships are created. The good news is that following our February update, a large amount of player reports we've investigated where hitches occurred were due to ships arriving on the server, so we're hopeful this provides a meaningful improvement there. We've got further improvements for how trinkets are loaded when approaching ships, optimizations for how floating treasure is handled, and a range of other smaller optimizations. The team have also been looking ahead to how we better maintain server performance over time. And this update introduces a new system that manages the activation of events, ensuring that the server has the necessary resources to operate the event safely. The emergent Megalodon encounters are the first encounter to use this new system, and we'll be bringing all of our other encounters and events into this management system over time. Before I move on from performance, I wanted to jump back to the topic of frame rate locking I hit last video. We've already seen lots of players see the benefit of locking their frame rate at one of our optimised levels since the update, And we also heard the pushback loud and clear on us considering removing our uncapped option. As a compromise, we've made the info text much clearer when navigating this option in the video settings, to help guide players on how to optimise performance, and right now we'll not be taking plans forward to remove the uncapped option. On to game security. Work to crack down on pack file usage is going well, and we're already starting to monitor where modified packs are being used to help us hone our detections, as we then work on securing our game files as part of a future update. The team have also been working with Epic to improve easy anti-cheats detection of some of our more prolific cheat engines, which has already begun to disrupt these cheats and their users. Then finally, this week's update delivers another wave of detections for ban evasion. And while we're not finished yet, the layering effect of all of these detections is really starting to crack down on players circumventing game bans. And then to finish off with gameplay fixes. All crews dealing damage to ancient megalodons will now all receive kill credit for their contribution, rather than it being on the last hit. Dropping items into shallow pools or within siren shrines should no longer cause them to float upwards. Grappling to ship's ladders should no longer teleport players to the void. And then we've toned down the ability for ancient megalodons to flip ships so aggressively. It can still happen, but now much less frequently. These are just some of the fixes landing in March's update. Another change arriving later this week, which may appear confusing, is for traps, where we've lifted the restrictions on these being able to be placed in and around the outpost taverns. At launch, we placed restrictions around the placement of traps at the outposts, which now, on review, feels against our usual tools not rules approach to gameplay mechanics, and in turn have now been removed. Players loading into a session won't be harmed during their wake up animation already, so the room for griefing here is pretty small, but lifting these restrictions allows traps to be used in all those creative ways we see players use when lying in wait to ambush those returning treasure at the outpost. And finally, I want to finish by sharing some changes we're going to be making to our enforcement policy. Over the last few months, we've been taking some time to review our strategy towards enforcement for players who break our pirate code. We've matured a lot as a live service since our policy was first designed, and on reflection, we feel we can create a more fair and transparent approach to enforcement that gives players some breathing room when mistakes are made, but most crucially, gives them the chance to be able to learn from those mistakes. Our old policy was a flat 3 strikes and you're out rule, and without providing players clear notice of how many strikes they had on their account, could lead to players receiving a lifetime ban for 3 potentially minor offences spread over many years. Without the transparency about the enforcement status of a player's account, we've often seen this generate frustration, as players feel like our support team has overreacted to a minor offence with a ban, when this was actually the final strike in a sequence. On reflection, we know we can do better here. So the team have been working to create a more fair and transparent policy that builds on the Xbox point system being used for enforcement across the Xbox platform. Our new policy will use a point system, twinned with a much clearer communication when offences are logged, and then the ability to self-serve the status of your account at any time from the Sea of Thieves website. Players will start their journey with 0 points, and can accrue a total of 12 before receiving a lifetime ban on their account. As players receive points for minor offences, they will hit thresholds that issue temporary suspensions, before continuing up to a permanent ban if their actions continue. These offences could either be from players' actions in-game, or our support site, meaning players could receive a permanent ban for repeat abusive behaviour to our staff on the Sea of Thieves support site. This policy will now cover both areas. Points will also decay over time, allowing players to learn from their mistakes and return to 0 if they don't cause further offences. Underpinning this system is clear messaging when players have received enforcement when loading into the game, and the ability at any stage to check their account status on the website, showing the current enforcement points and any temporary suspensions and their time remaining. The system is going to be rolling out in the next few months, and we'll share more on the specifics on the policy at that stage. With this policy refreshing, we're also going to use this to draw a line in the sand. We're going to be reviewing players with long-standing sanctions under the old enforcement policy and assessing opportunities to provide second chances to players who we feel on reflection have been sanctioned unfairly. I'm not going to share more on the specifics of this right now, and there's no actions needed from players, so don't start raising support tickets, but I'll commit to providing an update on this in a future video. Alongside this review, we're also going to address players who currently find themselves in limbo, with access to the game but not to our support site. Access to the support site will be returned. But as I said, be warned that offences can be accrued from unacceptable conduct on our site. I know this is quite a significant change to how we approach enforcement, but I feel confident that our new approach should provide a much more fair and transparent policy that allows players to learn and grow from their mistakes and lead to a better experience for all our players. Right, let's call it there. Catch you all next time.